Friends, family, fans, welcome back to another episode of Back 9 Bets. Episode 146, we're approaching 150. Big tractors, heat factors, nuclear reactors. We'll be chatting about all three of those things this week. There are specific things that each presents this week. Is always brought to you by Play Profit X. Use code FGDegenerates to get yourself 1.5% back over there, up to $200. We are joined by one of my buddies. Well, I had a great time with at the BMW Championship a couple years ago when his guy Victor won and my guy Rory completely sucked it up in front of me, three-putting from 14 feet. Ryan Noonan from 4for4 and BetSperts. How are you, my buddy?
It earned him this little spot on the wall, and we've rode hard all the way through. There were some downtimes. Sometimes we're like, should we change up the pictures? Should we take him off the wall? But wanted to stay strong with my boy. He earned it. That is Victor Hovland up there on the wall. So he earned it that day. There's nothing like that. I mean, first of all, single bullet and having it come home is amazing. But being on the grounds for it to happen and for him to be playing with Rory and to fire 29 on the back, and it was a great week. I told him on Tuesday it was his week. And he gave me a little head nod. So yeah, it was a fantastic golf experience. So absolutely excited to be here with you today. You are one of my favorite people in the space, someone I consider a friend in real life. I'm excited. It's been insane to watch your ascension over the last handful of years, and it could not be more well-deserved. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Hey, doing the show with Ron was part of that ascension. I do miss hanging out with him every Tuesday or Wednesday. But, who knows what happens in the future there. But either way, you and I are chatting now. We both had, at one point on Sunday, it was obvious that one of us was going to be very sad and one of us was going to be very happy. And I'm rocking the $100 bill shirt. It stinks, Ryan, because I haven't really had a chance to rock it since a long, long time ago in the outright market. We had the Cristobal Del Solar fun time.
Big time. Big time.
But it's not how I like to make a living. But you had Jake Knapp.
And Thor Bjornsson. Painful. But I was thinking about that too, knowing that I was coming on. And you had mentioned that you had not found the winner's circle from an outright standpoint since last year's John Deere. Yeah. I feel pretty good about this. I'm okay giving it up to the golf gods. Humble brag, I've got 6 home this year. That would have been 7.
Yeah. You do not need another one.
you needed one. Also, the only reason that was not okay, and my wife was actually pissed, it was Aldrich. And I tried not to have her swear him off. He's like, baby's 20 years old. But she watched the back 9 in Mexico in the playoff. So she's very, very out on Aldrich. I have to try to sell her on maybe some of the long game there because, Brian Campbell stole money from us there for sure. So
that was daylight rob. That was the Mexican cartel hit us in the sweet spot. That was one of the most, you see, like I didn't have any winners this week, but I had 3 playoff losses, it was just a brutal fashion. And then turns out that the final 2 guys in the playoff are my 2 dudes. So I also had Grieseman.
Great place to be.
Woo, it went from being super sweaty when Kirk stood over that putt on 18. I thought, I was like, this is happening again. I had 2 guys in here and Kirk's going to nail me. Misses that one, then misses the putt on the par 3. What a disastrous putt that was. But I was wearing my heart rate monitor, Noonan, just to see.
That would have been an all-timer. I did not consider that. That would have been an all-time bad run. And you probably should have maybe considered pivoting to positional bets and matchups for the tail end of 2025. If you would have lost the 3-man playoff, having 2 of the 3 in there, that would have been some all-time run out. Yeah.
No, I do the placement stuff as well. That usually subsidizes the economy for me. And that's been a little rough too, because I typically target the big boys, and the big boys have been struggling this year. They really haven't shown up to the party. Have you got any takes on like anyone that's been like one of your guys or someone that you expected more from this year than what they actually gave us?
Yeah, I've actually done less than I have in the past from a finishing position standpoint. I have been more on outrights, which is not a sustainable way to do this. No. But I got, real clear on how I wanted to allocate funds for the year, week in and week out, knowing my expectation of what to hit. So if I'm really, true to playing within the lines, knowing that if I can get 4 winners, 4.5 winners for the year, I'm going to be fine. I'm already on the other side of that. So we're playing with house money. but it is a little thin. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next year, but I wanted to give this a run and just see, hey, if we just give this a shot, allocate funds, and stay really heavy on outrights. It's when you have weeks like last week, it's brutal. Weeks like Mexico, brutal. I've had a pretty good run out, even though I have had a lot get over the line. I've had a sweat, right? I had runners on the weekend, and that's really all you want. Yeah. So I've had a really good run. So I'm going to consider what to do next year, but I've been, intentional about being more on the outright side, because I tell you, those outright tickets are fun to cash.
They're nothing. There's really nothing like it.
There isn't
sports betting, there's. If you're looking for a future in the NFL for a Super Bowl champ, like what are you getting? Like some of the worst teams that have got no shot at 70-1,
Correct.
So golf, to walk off with 100. Well, this is my highest outright I've ever hit. I don't think I've ever hit a triple digit outright before either. It's usually the thoroughbreds at the top. And Cam Smith, since Cam Smith left the PGA Tour, my outright market has dried up like his golf game. Both of us have struggled severely since he's left. So not ideal.
Wyndham 120 Wyndham for a US Open was about as, and I went aggressive on it too, because I felt like, why is he 120? So my staking was a little higher than it typically is, and it's 120. So it didn't have to be that much more to be a big win. $25, but fantastic ticket to cash for a major championship, especially. So yeah, I mean, I talk about that on my football show. And it really is it's probabilities, right? We're at the end of the day, we're talking about a futures. We're talking about win probability. We're talking about win probability from an outright standpoint, but it breaks my brain to think of it in the same sense. No, I actually think this guy at 60-1 has a legit shot to win this golf tournament. I'm not going to find a Super Bowl future or a, conference championships future for 60-1 that I think that's the worst team in the conference at 60-1 to win the conference. So it's funny how that actually works, but I'm with you. It breaks my brain in the NFL future market, because sometimes I just can't get there.
Yeah, it's so weird how a golfer can, but we do clump together bets, to make it like an 8-1 type bet at the end of the day. So
Sure.
We're kind of cheating in it a little bit, but not, we won't admit that, too much. So I made a horrible promise to the golfing gods that I would be rocking a tutu around the John Deere Classic if we could get Aldrich across the line. I made this sacrificial commitment on Friday night. And turns out that it would have been better if Grieseman won, because I wouldn't have to have rocked the tutu. But I have bought a American flag tutu that I will be wearing around the John Deere Classic. Who knows how much? Have media credentials. Shout out Pat Mayo for that. So I'll be having a good time in Silvis, where last year, it's going to be for the 4th of July, had a great time in the parking lot there with the cart guys, the guys that maintain and keep the carts up. I'll be staying with Tyler this week, potentially. I don't know if I'm even allowed to say that or not, but I'll be having a fun time hanging out with him at Silvis this week. So everyone that's going to be out and about, I'll be rocking this Jets hat, which my wife threw into a box over here with all sorts of other shit on top of it. As you can see, it's as in good a shape as the Jets right now.
Just trying to do your favor, buddy.
Yeah, she probably was. It's also pretty broken too. But either way, I will be out there. I bought KJ Parlay a beer last year. Too big of a beer. He told me he needs a smaller one. So maybe this time around I'll buy the big boy for you, KJ. But everybody else out there, I'll be buying beers. If you don't want, you can buy me a beer, Cristobal Del Solar, Aldrich Parketta, all of that jazz. But let's chat about some John Deere. We're going to be playing some back or nine going down the board here. And I'm going to start off with the top of the board. I'm going to go with how this works is you're going to say, I'm going to give you Matt McCarty or Denny McCarthy. And you got to back one or say 9 to the other. You can back them however you want. You can say DFS world. You can do betting, whichever argument you're trying to make about this golfer, go ahead and do that. And you got to say 9 on the other if you don't have a great stance on them.
I was on Matt McCarty last week. I have a little FOMO of staying away this week, though he got most of the work done with the putter, which is fine. Sometimes, this is a place that we kind of need guys to get work done with the putter. So I don't want to exclude you getting a lot of your strokes gained done via the putter, but I'm on Denny this week. So I will 9 him. That's what I'm doing. Am I taking
a 9 McCarty?
I'm going to 9 McCarty. Okay. Cause I'm going to take Denny. Then he's one of my outrights this week. Obviously likes coming to Rock Vegas, Rock Island, one of the quad cities here. He has finished no worse than T7 here, 3 straight years. He's not missed a cut all season. He's got 8 T20s in his 16 starts. So he's been in the mix. There's added distance this year and has kept the accuracy off the tee. He's having his best approach season of his career as well. It's a lot of good golf for Denny. It's a little weird. He's played some of his best golf on longer golf courses against tougher competition. But that doesn't, like, I don't know about what you think. It just feels small sample variance. I don't think that this is like a shift in who Denny McCarthy is from a profile standpoint. But this does feel like a spot where people can come and get their main victory. And this is a spot like, hey, we know this guy can spike putting wise, like no one else really. So he seems to like rolling him on these pure greens. It's kind of like the whole makeup of Denny here. So, 30-1 in that range. Where is he? Low 9s. Or, high 9s, I'm sorry, in DFS. So 4th guy off the board. Have no problem starting a lineup with Denny this week if you wanted to skip a little bit. But though I expect him to be pretty chalky as well.
Cool. I do expect him to be pretty chalky, and how I will be navigating the Denny McCarthy chalk market is betting him top 20 to win 3 units. Plus 150 out there at bet 365. Had a real nice number there. His best market has been the top 20 market over his career. If you take a look at Denny McCarthy's stuff, he's returning you a lot of money in the top 20 market versus the other markets. He's very consistent. Now that he's got that ball striking, moving in the right direction, he's provided a higher floor to us. And as a result, we're seeing, much more consistent results. Now the putter just needs to get him across the line, when it really matters. So, and I do agree with you. Torrey Pines, he showed up. Memorial, he always shows up. He likes these heavy golf courses, the big boy venue. So, also likes the John Deere Classic. Denny McCarthy has been the best actual bet at the John Deere Classic for a top 10. He's cashed it, I think, 3 of the last 4. So that is the best bet you could have made at the John Deere Classic. But I'm going with the top 20. Got a nice number there. I think that's the way to go over there. I'm also in on Matt McCarty, 80-1, 5 places, and Matt McCarty top 20 at plus 300. Got McCarthy and McCarty, yeah. So now I'm clicking buttons just like we had all of this stuff. But I got them both. Matt McCarty's he's won more times on the PGA Tour than Denny McCarthy, which is, you can say that a lot about a lot of people, Tristan's now won more than, not Tristan. Aldrich's now won more than Tommy Fleetwood on the PGA Tour. It's just, you can just make these random digs at other guys because it's hard to win. And there's a skill to winning, right? So he's won 100%. 3 times. On the KFT, 1 at the Black Desert. I think he's got a bit more win equity than, Denny's. You got to be a Denny guy, right, to be going back to him routinely. Yeah,
I would say historically I've not been a Denny guy, but when you start to see him, I think it might have been Farmers even, where just like, what's going on here? Like, he's starting to really ball speed is a little bit different. And then we started to get a little bit more, the numbers behind it. And it's like, okay, this seems to be over the course of the year. Now we're in, July, it holds up a little bit more weight, and he's not sacrificing accuracy to do so. Then you combine that with his best approach season ever. The putter can run hot, right? Sometimes we're just looking for these guys putting together these spiked weeks, right? How often can they piece all of these things together? And that's really hard when it's actually not even part of your bag, right? We want to see it show up and be part of your bag. And now it is part of Denny's, where there is a little bit more ceiling from an approach standpoint. It's not a place where you necessarily have to bomb it out there, but distance is always going to be helpful. So, and again, we know what the putter can do. So yeah, I wouldn't consistently call myself a Denny guy historically, but this year a little bit more. I think I bet him. This is my second time on him this year from an outright standpoint.
Yeah. We've seen Thomas Dietrich break through this year, Noonan. So at some points the floodgates for people have to open. I thought that was going to happen for Tommy at the Travelers, not to be, but Joanne with great point. Just use both. And I couldn't agree more. But the point of the back or 9 is to put us in hard situations to kind of help you make your decisions a little easier if you do have kind of things like that to go by. So our next back or 9 is going to be, where is this? It's going to be Tristan or Thor, Noonan. Are you in for Tristan Lawrence, or this is going to be Thorbjorn Olesen? We'll get to Michael Thorbjornsson next.
Oh, this is okay.
Michael Thorbjornsson, I feel like, is a little out of Tristan's range, right? It would be an obvious Michael Thorbjornsson take.
I thought so. Okay.
This is Thorbjorn Olesen. There are 2 in the field. Do not drink and click. We are trying to avoid situations like this. So Tristan or Thor?
I will back Thor. I'm not super excited. I was doing a little bit of work today and found him popping in a couple of different things. Weird price, but he modeled very well for me. He came out 6th overall. My model over at BetSports Golf. Getting a lot of the putter we know is good. He's done really well from a par 4 scoring standpoint, both in birdies and just scoring average. Putting baseline is high, and then putting specifically on bent or poetriv, really pure surfaces. His putting numbers are pretty good. And then also looked at just recent forms, just rolling last 12. He's playing pretty well. So he got up there a little higher than I was expecting in my model. I'm not a Thirsty Lawrence guy per se. I know he is one of your guys, or at least waving the flag a little bit. So I'm guessing you're going to kind of cape up for him here.
Yeah, I am, but I'm not against Thor either. But if I were to pick between the two, I would go with Tristan. And this is a maniac override situation. I've got Thorbjorn Olesen higher than Michael Thorbjornsson in my model, which
I did too, actually.
Yeah, Michael's doing a lot of good stuff recently. We should chat about it in a little bit. But Michael Thorbjorn Olesen, Jesus Christ, these guys. He's ultra talented. But the thing is, I think with Thorbjorn Olesen, I just fancy his top 40 market if you're in the mood for anything like that. He's just so consistent. If you're just taking a look at his recent stuff here, it's just usually got a 3 next to the first number, right? But it's not a third, it's just a 30th something. So he's just finding himself in the mix. He's a great safe play at $8,100, 7%, whatever. He's going to make the cut most likely for you there. But Tristan, in my opinion, is a bit more risky, but he's finally, I believe, Ryan, got to the point now where he's playing like he could when he was on the DP World Tour. We expected him to show up here and dominate because he was one of the best DP World guys. He was trying to beat. He was the only person in the race to Dubai that could beat Rory in the race to Dubai. The DP World Tour Championships. Didn't quite get it done there, and that kind of just derailed everything for him. And got over here, couldn't quite get it together. T12 at the US Open, T4 at the Sudal in wherever that was, and then 8th last week. With not the greatest putting performance, let's be honest. You gained a couple fractions, but the ball striking was sensational. Through about halfway or 3/4 of the tournament, he was leading the field in ball striking. So he's also not the longest guy in the world. So I think I'm going to be looking at Tristan to win this thing 80-1 at a golf course that really doesn't need that much. You can bomb and gouge his place a bit, but I think it also does reward a bit more of the Zach Johnsons, the Steve Strickers. There's multiple holes that you can't just rip driver, because you're going to be literally through the fairway in the shit. There's nowhere else for the ball to go. So I think he's going to kind of dominate in that department. He's also, like you mentioned, Tristan's also not too shabby on the bent grass stuff. Pretty solid in that department over the last little while. So the ball striking is coming together. I'm looking forward to Tristan on easy courses. He's second in the field there. So 81's a very fair price for a guy of his caliber. I think he was never priced lower than $8,100 on the DP World Tour in 2024. It is the DP World Tour, but you can calibrate this as a DP World Tour event. He's $7,300 now. Yes, he's going to be 10-ish%, but the value on the price there is amazing. So I'm going to him in that market. Laddering his ass to a top 10 plus 700 and a top 20 for plus 320. I'm all in on Tristan. I made this bet from my bed Monday morning. I just knew where I was going.
That's a good one. I didn't dig in much, but when you kind of look at his ledger and look at him historically, does seem to be one of these guys that kind of rides the wave a little bit. He's piecing together strong finishes, right? Then he's kind of just in the absolute wilderness for a little while. And to your point, we're kind of in it a little bit with, some T4 in Europe. Obviously the showing at the US Open was great, and then did it again at the US Open. If you even go back to last year, winning in Africa, and then kind of carries it over to a top 2. Some of the stuff that you referenced, he's piecing together really strong finishes. And he loses it for a little while, and then it kind of comes back. So form is fickle, fleeting. We don't know when it's going to start or stop, but at the same time, you kind of feel good about a guy. He's checking some boxes statistically, and is in one of those heaters form wise. You might as well keep pounding the table for him.
Exactly. I think you just got to rock and roll with him. Let's get Deere T-Dax saying we're going to rock and roll. I can't wait. And Mike's going to be at the John Deere too. So I'll see you there on Saturday, my friend. Better come and find me. All right. I said we're going to chat about Michael Thorbjornsson. So let's go with Mike T and Dave T. Davis Thompson. Jesus, I can't speak today. We've got them both over here because that's what we're doing. So Michael Thorbjornsson back or 9, Davis Thompson back or 9. One's a defending champ, one ran runner-up here last year, one playing a little better lately, one still looking for the putter. Where are you going with the two of these?
This is tough for me. This actually isn't tough. This isn't actually a tough discussion for me, actually, but the premise is tough. Right? I'm going to give you a little bit of an analogy, a little bit. I'm going to be stepping outside and, you know, claiming something that I really can't do. You ever find a band early, and you're like, you know, you're listening to their stuff, no one knows who they are. Like, oh, these guys fucking rock. Like, I love this band, right? You start sharing it with your friends, and they're coming to town. We got to go to this concert. It's really good. These guys are good. Next thing you know, they're opening for like bigger bands. And then you go in a couple years later, you go to the show, and it's like 16, 17-year-old girls. And like, it's not the same crowd that used to be anymore. Now it's a bigger amphitheater. And you're like, where are my people? Like, people are here with their parents. No one's passing joints around anymore. I don't know what's going on. I lost what I used to come and get down on. So I don't want to say that that's Thor. This is one of the best amateurs in the world. So any golf hardo has been aware of Thor and the trajectory and as he's becoming. Byron, I've been here every week. I've been here every damn week. And now, my shout out to Golf Tips Checker and the work that he does. It pains me so much that he is the most tipped golfer this week. Yeah. I hate it. I hate it with all my heart. I'm not jumping off. Was on him. It's also really hard to make, you know, splash back on a guy that was 100 the week before and you jump in at 30, knowing he's going to be significantly more popular because he popped last week. But here we are. Again, a mass hole myself. Thor, also a mass hole. Not a lot of, you know, Northeasterners on the tour. So definitely hanging with my guy Thor. So look, he's not consistent yet. He's not the first young guy with a ton of potential that has no consistency, right? We're even seeing it with Ludwig a little bit, who's significantly older for a young guy than Thor is. But when he's popped, and you know he's got 6 T8 or better T8 or better finishes in his past 24 starts. Shows the ceiling that we have. Been in contention multiple times. Sometimes it's like Corrales and weak field and stuff like that, but it's kind of what we have here last week, last weekend this week. Yeah. He's shown ceiling ball striking wise. He's gained 3 or more strokes ball striking in 20% of his rounds over the past 6 starts. The second highest rate in the field. The putting has regressed a little bit, but we've seen spike putting from him previously. Again, we're kind of marrying some high upside ball striking with the ability to go super duper low. And he is 1,000% my guy this week. Wanted some bigger numbers, you know, saw the 30s that were out there on Sunday night. And I'm like, holy crap. I can't not though, right? Because the FOMO was massive. It is just an insane, you know, that pain is like nothing else. When you just a guy that you go to the well for all the time and you sit out because of a number and then he gets home, I just can't do it. So I love Davis Thompson. The ball striking is fantastic. He seems to like it here. The putting is atrocious and I can't get past it. I just can't get past it.
Neither can I.
So I know he's also popular. I thought he would be even more popular based on the number because I thought it was actually a pretty fair price. Yeah. But it's definitely Mikey T for me.
Yeah. The same goes for me, Noonan. I thought long and hard about both of them on my betting card. Didn't get to either. And the FOMO is real. So as a result, I've had to go with Michael Thorbjornsson for a top 5. just to like cover my bases, baby. Like, you know, give me a Thorb for 2 units there. You know, if he wins, then cool. I also make my 2. If he doesn't, then so be it. I've lost a third of a unit. It is what it is. I think, like you mentioned, and I think I like the top 5 more than the outright because the moment he got in the lead at the Rocket, it was like, oh, how the fuck do I putt again? I don't know what it's like. What am I doing? But maybe that's all he needed to feel in order to get in the mix. But I also vividly remember sitting on the 14th bank there on the green, the drivable par 4 last Sunday, and watching him come through because he was someone I was worried about because I had Davis Thompson. By the way, I'm going for the 3-peat at the Deere. I had Seb and Davis Thompson, so
that's big.
Likely not happening, but you know, you never know. But I was watching him come through and I think he bogeyed that 14th hole from like chipping for eagle, trying to get up and down for birdie. And I think he made a bogey, like a bad bogey. So just kind of trying to put that into perspective. And I think top 5 is a little safer. Also, the most tipped option. It's either that's what made me bet the top 5 because I don't want 25% of my Twitter timeline having everyone sharing these tickets because that's just the fucking worst, man. So
it's tough.
It's tough. It's the total worst, especially community wins when you're not on them. But Davis Thompson, he was putting a lot better and chipping a lot better when he won last year. He's not anymore. Like he has gained putting once in the last 9 starts. The ball striking great. He's 14th in the field there. Easy scoring conditions, all of that jazz, great course history. I just don't trust him, to get it done with the putter. You're not just going to, that is the one area of the game that you can find randomly, but
Sure.
it just seems like he's taken too long to find it. We had the bent grass greens last week as well. Didn't quite come home there,
He's not just losing strokes putting for the most part. Mostly it's been like, he is just absolutely abysmal, just awful.
Yeah.
So in the last couple weeks have been especially bad. So for me to think that he's going to go flip the switch, knowing that everything that kind of goes into having to be the defending champ at a place like that, you're just pulled a little bit more media for a guy that doesn't have probably a ton. So all those different things impact your schedule, your practice time. All those things are, get in my head a little bit that are not going to be in our spreadsheets, but I think they're real things, right? These are real human beings that are impacted by that. So for him to go back to back at the same track would be pretty damn impressive to cure the putting woes at the same time.
Kenny Kim has a good rule that he never bets a guy as a defending champ if that's their first win. Like
it's a great rule.
It's a good rule, in my opinion, because you're not used. It's a brand, you can't prepare for that unless you've won, so I'm totally down on that. And the game, just the ball striking great, but the putter, not lots. And I'm out on him in DFS as well. I'm just going to fade his ass entirely because I just don't. The putting is just too bad. It's not good enough right now. Very, very bad. Next up, back or 9, Sammy or Sam S, Sammy Valimaki or Sam Stevens. Noonan.
Not riding heavy with either Sam. I'm going to go Sam Stevens. Sam Valimaki is such a weird profile. He just none of it really makes sense, but he seems to be longer golf courses. Longer irons are more of his thing. Where that's not that we have a wedge fest here per se, but the majority of approach shots are coming in from 150, sub 150. Regardless of even some of the dog legs. So Sam Stevens, like him more on places where club head cover off, gripping and ripping without any penalty. That's not necessarily the case here because there is, I think the rough here is a little bit more penal than what we saw even last week in Detroit historically. Even though, we got last year, it was kind of an outlier, 28 under, he kind of ran away. Really haven't been into the high 20s here historically. So probably, again, we're mid 20s, low 20s here, but last year felt like a little bit of an outlier where I think there's just a little bit more of a ceiling for Sam Stevens. You're probably more of a DFS play than on my betting card. So I'm gonna back Sam Stevens here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm playing the game correctly with my backing or my verbiage.
It's like deduction. Yeah. If you're backing one guy, you're obviously going to say 9 to the other. So, and you seem to keep giving me a reason to chat about the other dude that you're not backing. So I'm going to tell you guys why to go with Sammy Valimaki as a top 20. 39% of the time he's inside the top 20, baby. You're getting a plus 320 over there. Finished top 20 at the Rocket. Finished 16th here last year. He's, he rattles off a lot more top 20s than people give him credit for. That's almost double. He's double what Sam Stevens is inside the top 20, although Sam Stevens' floor is basically the same as Sammy, also makes a lot more cuts. But I think the way he's kind of just vibing right now, I think that's the way to go. He's a great approach player, and he's not too shabby at putting, So those are the two things that you really need around you. He's going to dial back off the tee. He's been pathetic. But if we take a look on the course is shorter than 70, I'm putting this as a shorter than 200-yard course, Ryan. The par 3s are doing a lot of the long lifting, and the par 5s are lanky long. They're quite long par 5s. So I think a lot of the shots you're going to be hitting like 3 woods, hybrids, 3 irons, especially with Sammy having all of that. Surprisingly, I don't know, maybe that's a malfunction, but the distance for him hasn't been great. That doesn't seem right, but could always be a problem with the model. You never know. But either way, he's still pretty handy when it comes to the short courses off the tee. And again, solid profile here at the course in the past with some decent course history. So I'm going to back Sammy Valimaki and I'm going to say 9 to Sam Stevens if I had a gun to my head.
Has anyone ever seen Sammy Valimaki and Jeff Feinberg in the same place?
That's a great question. I've only ever been in Canada with Jeff, and I don't think Sammy was there, but that's a good point. We'll have to do it. Maybe we have to get them together.
Jeff is the love child of Sammy Valimaki and Robert McIntyre.
That is such a good comp. I think that
I told him I don't think he appreciates it though.
Yeah, have you told him that?
Yeah, he doesn't appreciate it.
Okay, that's great. I'm gonna have to remind him about it. All right, back on 9, Noonan. Nico or Eco? So Nico Echeverria or Eric Cole this week?
Oh man, you know who led the field in strokes A&T degree on Sunday? Nico Echeverria, who couldn't putt for some reason. Who's a fantastic putter. If he has baseline putting, he's in the playoff.
Yeah,
he finishes 2 shots off. The putter is historically really good. Again, one of the guys, when you look at kind of his profile, does a lot of the heavy lifting. But I like. It's another guy that seems to be kind of a form rider. We saw it in the swing season where he pieced together a bunch of fantastic finishes in a row.
Yeah,
pretty decent field. The Zozo, wins that, and then goes a couple months later and goes to the playoff. Nick Taylor, right, and the Sony. So he's played pretty well.
Yeah, my other playoff loss I had this year was Nico.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's smart to be backing him, right? He carried that over. So just to see if he carries over any of his ball striking. The driver is sometimes where he can lose. Look at it. It's a place where you can get away with that and not be really punished by losing strokes off the tee, right? So if he can kind of be middle of the pack there, I like him quite a bit. I've not been on Eric Cole really in any way, shape, or form this year, to be honest. It's just been really consistent. He's not been great. So it's definitely the Colombian for me.
Cool. I think that might be one of the first guys that we actually agree upon because I'm in on him this week to win 60-1. By the way, feel free to if you're chatting about any guys, you've already chatted about Thor as your outright. We can kind of top up on your outright.
I also bet Nico at 60.
Okay, great.
Denny at 30.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because 230s and a 60 will get you pretty close to being. Is that your 3 guys this week?
I got 4. I got one more in the middle here.
Okay, cool. I'm in on Nico. Just when he spiked like 2 weeks at the Black Desert, then won the Zozo like two events later. So tee to green he was on fuego, and I think this course really suits him a lot better. The lack of distance definitely gonna not penalize him as much as the Rocket. I don't know about a lot of people are kind of saying you can keep the models the exact same from last week to this week. I feel like off the tee that's the biggest difference. Like the Bombers are really good. We saw it. Like freaking Aldrich and Griesemann were hitting a 365 on the par 5s.
I don't think you can keep the models the same. Yeah, it was last week was driver heavy, no missed fairway penalty at all.
Yes.
I don't think the drivers the models should be the same this week off the tee at all. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Glad we're in the same ballpark there. Super accurate off the tee, solid on the approach stuff here. Everything but weighted strokes gained. His proximity, green regulations, good shots are all good, but the strokes gained struggling a little bit. Particularly very, very good from 150 to 200 is Nico Echeverria's ballpark. So we're going to see a couple of those this week. More of them. A lot more shots from inside like 100 at the John Deere than you'd expect too. So hopefully that can get together. 18th in the field in strokes gained out the rough from inside 150 as well. So solid stuff there from Nico. We're going to be fading Eco and going with Nico in this department, both of us. I fancy that. Next up, we've got 2 Kevins. And I can't even remember who the other one was. It's Kevin Roy and who's the other Kevin? I can't even remember my own question.
Kevin Yu?
Kevin Yu. That's exactly what.
Probably not Kevin Kisner or Kevin.
Not Kisner, no. Kevin. It has to be 2 guys that make you think. So Kevin Yu and Kevin Roy this week. Back or 9, Noonan.
So I got to trust the model. Didn't do anything with it. Maybe it ends up being a DFS play, or maybe I find some access to it. But Kevin Roy modeled second for me. Entire model, Kevin Roy. So
got some good recent ball striking in there then, huh?
I'm giving a little bit more credence to recent play than than I would typically model with this week, this field. And again, obviously we have it coming off of a spiked Thursday for him last week, but a lot of stuff is good. I mean, par 4 scoring is solid. The putter is pretty good. He just didn't grade out poorly really anywhere. Short-term approach is all obviously very, very, very strong. Just looking at how he's performed last 36 on easy and very easy golf courses. I have him first. So played some really good golf. So that would be Kevin Roy for me.
Roy. I love it. I like them both. And Kevin used the better overall profile. But I think Kevin Roy, we kind of trying to find some Kevin Lightning in a bottle this week. Those last 3 rounds, those last 3 tournaments have been sensational by Kevin Roy. And, was first round leader. So he's had a taste of the lead at the Rocket. Didn't quite do the greatest with it the following day, but kind of bounced back on the back 9 there a little bit. So playing some solid golf. The number's real nice, Noonan. I bet Kevin Roy at 60-1 or 66-1. I think he's an absolute go-to in this department. Do I believe he's going to win the tournament? No, but I'm going to take the 6 places. I think that's kind of, you bet a couple outrights every now and then that especially if you have the placement market, the each ways, that's more what you're kind of gunning for. He's one of these dudes, he's 9th in my safety, 50th in my upside, that's more the safe side of things. But I'm also going to be betting him to finish top 20 as well. Kevin Roy, he's inside the top 20 religiously, man.
7 straight cuts he's made. He hasn't missed a cut since Houston. And again, he's not playing every week, but he's not playing some of the harder golf courses. But I don't want the hard golf courses personally in my data set at all this week.
Yeah,
I think it's really important. If you're just using rolling strokes gained that you grabbed from PGA Tour, from Data Golf or whatever, right? The free stuff that's out there, you're getting stuff that you don't want in there for some guys, right? Like, I don't want Michael Kim's poor performance at the Truist held up against him when the rest of these guys were at Myrtle Beach, right? That's not great for what the story I'm trying to tell for this week. So it's really, really important. So look, 18 to Canada, 8th last week. Yeah, he didn't do a lot with it, but he didn't completely fall off the face of the earth. He still bagged the top 10, considering all the things that happened there. Pretty much gained across the board. The putter, he lost a little bit, but it's a pretty good performance. I think it's a good number and a guy I would expect to continue to carry on and be in the mix at least a little bit. So good number.
He's projected to be 9% at $7,400. So people are catching on a little bit, But also great driver of the ball on these shorter courses. Good to see that as well from Kevo over there. Back on 9. Lucas or Luke going into the week. We got Lucas Glover and Luke Clanton, Noonan. Who are you fancying between the two of them?
This is a tough one.
I did my homework when I put these pairings together. So
this is a good one. This is a good one.
Trying to make it difficult for you to pick.
Yeah. So I really like this setup for Lucas Glover. I am a Luke Clanton guy. Again, I like the young kids. I get enamored with the high ceiling talent. I think we all do at times. It's just someone who we spend so much time. I mean, look, this is the nerdiest shit on the screen ever right now, right? Like, you have just an insane spreadsheet. I have them all over here. This is what we do. And then, taking advantage of credentials in the past, I got to talk to Lucas Glover last year. And could that dude be less impressed with any of the questions that I had? I mean, I just tried to get a sense of how much is it part of your process, right? We're of the same age, so I know he's not new school. They're just trying to talk to him about putting splits on different surfaces or less than driver golf courses, or just trying to get a sense of I know obviously everyone's got a TrackMan on the range, but in terms of actual performance, how much do you let recent form kind of dictate practice, or is that part of anything that your team is putting together?
Those are good questions that the media doesn't ask, by the way. So
no, I pulled aside from multiple people that are there every week that are that's a fantastic question. I'm well, I'm not here every week, so use it, because I'm so curious. I love to hear people reporting and asking these guys.
Yeah.
And it kind of went the way you would think. Spieth, kind of in the middle of the ground, right? Middle in terms of age now, which is kind of crazy. Still on the younger side, I guess. But he doesn't give a rip about putting surfaces. He's hey, if I'm rolling it really well, I feel good about no matter where I am, regardless of what happens. Akshay, 21, 22 years old. He's into all of it, right? Yeah. He has to step back and parse through and have his team do it, but he loves all of it. He thinks it's all useful, right? A guy like Lowry. Lowry's I used to step off the course and look for it right away. Like I get it in my hands. What's the data? And he's like, I have to back off and let my team filter through it. Lucas Glover was like, I'll never not go to a golf tournament because I thought I can't put on pole greens. Like he couldn't give it a rip. He's like, I play the golf courses that I think I can win at. Like it was like he could not have been more annoyed by the style of my questions. Like, what do you want me to ask? The same stuff? You seem, and I like him. I think he's really
he's a great guy.
Yeah. I think he's a good dude. I think he's insightful on like some of the high level tour stuff. This stuff he could not give a rip about, which I thought was kind of wild. So it's always stuck in my brain. The only good thing, it's going to be really hot, and strokes gain swamp ass. Lucas Glover should be rating high. I don't know how much you weighed that this week. So I think we're going to be approaching 90 plus here this week, but I'm always going to go Clanton. He didn't play well last week. He couldn't putt, obviously, to shoot over par on Saturday when everyone else is just putting up numbies was kind of tough to see for Luke Clanton. So I grabbed a little in like the without markets because it was the same price on Monday morning as like the with markets on FanDuel. So I grabbed a little bit of like FOMO Luke Clanton, not an official play for me. So I would go Luke Clanton, but I like the setup for Glover. And he's played well here historically. Yeah. Regardless of what he thinks what the greens are.
I need to ask you more Lucas Glover questions because the accent, the voiceover is phenomenal. The questions you asked him, fantastic. The answers you gave were even better. So the name of this episode is Heat Factors, so that is definitely swamp ass centric. And the glove man doesn't play with any gloves, and no matter how hot it gets, those sandpapery hands of his, those blue collar fucking mitts are just gonna grip and rip, baby. So I'm actually in on, and I've also tailored these questions to these back or nines to kind of lead us into my bets, because things can get astray if I'm trying to throw bets in and we're not talking about the same guys all the time. So
it's not amateur hour here. It's not your first radio. It was 141. What are we on episodes?
146. But
146.
I think I've only ever I had Pat Mayo on for episode 100. He was the first ever guest I had on the show. I did 99 of them on my own. I've done other shows where, I've had guests. I've obviously co-hosted lots of other stuff. But this one has been my baby. And I'm kind of getting a bit more people on now, so you're one of the first few that I've had on. So it's the first time I've done this. So Lucas Glover, like you mentioned, you got a lot of things you like about him. Fantastic track record, 10th, 1st, 6th, 23rd, in 4 of his last 5. 9th at the Travelers, which I think is a solid comp. Not a lot of the signature event guys playing this week, obviously, because Ricky Fowler I think Ricky is in the field though. It's not a great example of what I was trying to say there, but you get my point, people. Nice stuff there. And then 22nd at the Charles Schwab. That's something that I'm definitely going to be looking at. Those are 2 solid comps that I think I use for my comps as well. So Lucas Glover should pop up quite nicely in the comp course there. 19th in that department. Ball striking is great. He actually putts, I think, a little bit better. Surprisingly, on bent, I'll tell him that. Ryan Noonan says, I should tell you that you actually are better. You actually are better on bent grass. But I think, it makes a lot of sense. He's 40-1. He's past winner. We've seen guys, Stricker, ZJ, they've won this thing a couple times, I believe. So I'm kind of sad Sep's not out yet. This would be a great venue, like to see him in the current form, not the form that he was at the Travelers. Maybe he's hurt or something. I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know.
See him in his current state playing this course again would be great. So sad not seeing him out here, but Glover does his thing. The thing I like the most about Clanton is he leads this field in easy scoring. He's got minimal rounds in that department, but anytime it gets easy, like they probably played in college, he fucking rips it, baby. So
yeah,
great course history here as well. Solid on these shorter courses, still small sample size for the Clan man, but he grades out fantastically for me. But I think he's kind of giving me some issues, Noonan. How he's shown back up after getting his tour card. I think golf is so mental. Like if you show up with the mindset you fought with your wife, baby shat on you, whatever, like you show up to the golf course, you're not in the same headspace as you were having had sex in the morning, your baby didn't shit on you. Like things change, like he's a pro now. I think there's different responsibilities. He's sponsored by Nike. What do you think's up with? Do you think he's going to bounce back, or do you think we're expecting him to kind of?
Yeah, I mean that's it, right? I mean you're playing with house money and you don't have a card. And you're like, hey, I'm going back to school. Or even though I get my card, I'm going back to I'm going back to, finish the team stuff with my boys. There's really no pressure. Now you're good to go, right? And it's 100 instead of 125. And the pressure to like hold that card for next year is a little bit more difficult. What's up, Tyler? Yeah, I mean, hey, man, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best here. I do the best to fight off my New England accent. So, I don't have a lot of experience with a Southern accent. Gave it my best run. But I think that's just, like you said, human nature. It's real pressure now. And showed up a little bit last week for sure. And maybe shows up a little bit again here, just especially these points, low-hanging fruit for him to get into these, other events. Like you got to take advantage of some of these here softies when you're in on the front end early. So Ludwig did it right in the swing season in his first year and took advantage. Maybe we see that here after Clanton kind of finds his footing here.
Yeah, and they also like shoved him in with Rory and Ludwig in Canada.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's not ideal, but the putting, that was one of he probably won't ever have a worse putting performance than he did on Saturday in the rest of his career. That's like fucking bad. Was it like 5.5 strokes he lost putting? That's like
hard to do. Yeah.
That is that's not good. That's like 14 keystones deep on the back nine bad putting, like not good there. All righty. I have a couple more. Yeah. Poston or Putnam at the top over here. Andrew Putnam coming off quite a solid performance the last couple. Where are you going between those two dudes at the top? Yeah, Noonan.
The model slightly likes Putnam. Again, leaning on heavy recent form, but again, he's played well historically on easy golf courses. We know the putter can spike for sure. The short-term approach form has been better than he is historically. Again, one of the best putters in the field, depending on how long you're looking at it. I like the Postman. He actually grades out a little bit better. He's third in the metric that I'm giving the most credence to this week, which is simply, as I said, pulling out all the difficult stuff. So nothing from a scoring condition standpoint that's difficult. Looking at weaker fields and shorter to average golf courses. All three of those combined over the last 18 months, who's performed the best? Postman's actually third. So I'm actually kind of interested in both. I don't have a strong take, so I would cop out and say, why not both, especially from a DFS standpoint? Neither of them made my card from a betting standpoint. I'm guessing the Putnam price is probably a little bit more palatable than when Postman is right now.
Yeah. So if I were to give you an answer, you'd back Putnam.
I'd take Putnam. Yep.
I think that's a very obvious situation to go. I'm not the biggest Putnam advocate, but he's a safe option. He's just 0 top fives in the last 12 months. And he had a great chance over the weekend at the Rocket. Didn't quite get it together, but has slightly more top tens than Poston. So there's just some guys, Noonan, that just they don't have it, man. They just don't have it when it matters. And it's particularly the guys that putt well, right? That seems to be the case on Sundays that lets them down the hardest. And I randomly deep dove Colin Morikawa's situation every time he's been within 3 of the lead. And it was shortly after the workday and then the Open Championship. After that, he has completely just not had it on Sundays with the putter. Like prior to that, he'd never lost putting when within 3 of the lead. Like when he was in the mix, he was in the mix, and now he's completely just like shit, man. So anyway, we're not here to speak about Colin. We're here to speak about Poston. We are bet at 33-1. Top 5 at plus 650 as well. I'd be grabbing both of those. The 33 was at BetMGM. So nice number there. Poston's got the safety ranking of 5th, the upside of 10th. So that's not ideal. Neither are better than his DraftKings price, which is 3rd in the field, which I think is kind of high,
Yeah, you might actually end up. I mean, where do you have? So you're at 14% is your ownership projection for him right now? Yeah,
now, yeah.
So that's kind of to see if that works. Sometimes you get those guys that just top tier overpriced, and all of a sudden they become like a nice pivot because they're so overpriced. Maybe that ends up being sub 10. That would be a little bit more interesting. So, like I said, Postman's 3rd in the metric that I'm giving the most credence to this week. Even though overall Putnam came out higher. I think the win equity thing, and I was on Poston in Vegas. He won in Vegas.
CBC right? Summerlin, yeah.
Yeah, he won in Summerlin. In the swing season. I was on that one. That was a nice one. So
yeah, and I realized with that W, I was like, how the fuck did people get on him this week? And then you take a look at his course history there, and Wasn't the greatest like the last 2 years, but very good. I think he had a fourth or something like 3 years before that, so
he also tried his hardest on Sunday to give that one back. I don't know if you remember. Yeah, he was out like a 4-shot lead and then just got real tight.
The yips, he's low-key is a high functioning alcoholic, but with the yips, like he's a high functioning yipper, because he throws some bricks from 3 feet, like often, I've seen it too much for my liking, and it's going to probably haunt me down the stretch. But first, 6th, 2022, 2023, and then kind of not great in 2024, 30th, but still solid. And also a couple high ass, like the PGA Championship, he bricked a couple as well at the PGA Championship and finished 5th, so he can absolutely spike with the irons. And the couple times he struggled around here has been when the irons haven't been great. He's hitting that a lot better lately. Coming in, the ball striking's 46th, the approach plays 31st for Poston. So we know the putter can spike. We also know he can spike the putter after missing a 3-footer. Those are both very live this week. We'll see. I love him in the outright market. Don't necessarily love him at $10,100. So we'll see what happens in that department there. And I believe that's it for me from the betting standpoint. So we've got 2 more for you, Noonan.
Okay.
Chris K or Chris G? Chris Kirk or Chris Gotterup this week? Both. Chris Gotterup's price it caught me off guard a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. I think he's a little slightly overpriced, but I'm curious as to if you have a reason why he should be the price he is.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with the form. It's been pretty fantastic. Obviously couldn't make a putt in Canada. Otherwise, he's been very much in the mix, which is a little bit challenging when you want to kind of be like, oh no, I really want him on spots where he can grip it and rip it. He's kind of doing it at places that kind of don't require that as well. So you feel like maybe he's turning the corner. This is a great example of like, poor man's like Gotterup is in the same kind of Clanton sphere coming out right at Oklahoma. He had like Rutgers and then Oklahoma, I believe. Fantastic college golfer. And then everyone was like hammering Gotterup as soon as he came out, and like we loved him and people were excited about him. And he falls off a little bit. And now he's maybe kind of got his feet under him. He probably has a little bit more of a support staff and he kind of knows what to expect. And this is kind of new for him and not as new anymore. So probably feel like there's a change actually happening. Chris Kirk is just another guy that just sometimes is you're riding when it's hot. How can you come over mentally what happened there on Sunday? But again, this is a 40-year-old man who's overcome bigger in his life than missing, a putt in the playoff. So I feel like someone's going to bounce back from that. It's probably Chris Kirk. So just in terms of who I think profiles best on this golf course, it would be Chris Kirk. I might be typecasting Gotterup unfairly based off of how he's trending, and maybe he's evolving as a player. I feel better about him when I know that he can just push 350 occasionally and have no worries that he's going to be behind a tree or in 4-inch rough. That's not the case here.
Yeah, I'm in the same situation. I mean, he's priced 8th. He's the 8th highest priced golfer in the field. I know it's the John Deere Classic, but geez, Chris Kirk probably should have been higher than him, price-wise. Yeah. So I think Chris Kirk also, didn't he say that he took off the Travelers so that he could play these 2 Midwest events?
I didn't hear that, but that's interesting. I mean, that's a strong play.
Because I think he's trying, like he probably knows that this is his jam. He's won 6 times on tour or 3 times on tour. I think he'll bounce, like you mentioned there. I think he's definitely bounced back from worse in his lifetime there. So again, another guy who can get himself in the mix and then brick a 4-footer just out of nowhere. But
for sure,
I think I will back Chris Kirk. Chris Gotterup, what on earth is he not doing at 93? Probably going to bite me, because I remember saying Brian Harman for the Valero was the most expensive bet you could have ever placed. He's lost you the most money out of any golfer in the field. Wins the Valero. That's just what happens. It is how it is. You say enough shit on the camera, you're going to find yourself getting caught. So
1,000%.
All right. Final back or nine, day or night, aka Jake Knapp when you're sleeping, or Jason Day.
Interesting.
At the top of the board.
I'm just not a Jason Day guy. I like the fit. It's fun. He's here for a reason. I'm not sure what that reason is, but he's here.
great medical facilities in the Quad Cities.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't really know. Nap would be the same, right? When I think about similar to what I just kind of typecast Goddard up as, like I like Nap in Mexico. And again, he kind of went against the grain there in the Palm Beaches for a little bit until he fell off. Was on him last week because again, I knew that he could just pummel drives and just have 91 yards in from the rough from his approach shots over and over again. And the putter can spike as well. So I would go Nap. I'm mostly just not a Jason Day guy. I'm not paying, chalk top of the board prices on Jason Day. Jason Day with, 5 digits from a DFS standing point is of no interest to me whatsoever. And I just don't feel like I'm going to get burned very often by sitting on the sidelines for 2025 Jason Day.
Exactly. And I think what we're seeing is like the ball striking sitting 23rd in the field. Cool, whatever. That's solid. He's a world-class talent. But the short game is 6th. And it's his best attribute of the two is around the green. 70% green regulation rate here. Right. Yes, you are going to be chipping around the drivable par 4s, the par 5s. But at hellish conditions, hard conditions, that's where his shit really gets going because he will scramble from anywhere, right? Like that's his jam. He's just not a birdie guy, in my opinion. Yes, he won the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson. His iron play just popped out of nowhere, that week. So I'm not going to overreact to that much. The metrics don't really grade out the greatest for him, although he's still, second in strokes gained, all that.
He's a class player for sure.
He's a class player. I get it. So let's jump over to Play Profit X share real quick, Noonan, as we get the hell out of here. So here's the top 20 market. I've got Jason Day here at minus 125 not to finish inside the top 20, because if we go back to the tool here real quick, he's a top 10 guy quite religiously, but he does it almost as often as he does top 20. So I might just hedge myself by taking the top 10 bet, the top 10 play, and then loading up on the no for the top 20, because he could easily withdraw out of nowhere. I think. And that's the fun part about Play Profit X, because they obviously are a sponsor of the show. Yeah, there's no other place that you can bet the other side of the placement markets, which is really cool. So, especially in bigger fields where you got like Scotties and Xanders and things like that, where have negative top 20 odds, that's where you can really like take advantage of this. But I still think there's some, I've got the $75 out there for Jason Day not to finish top 20. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's I love having the no option. I like the price.
Now that hasn't been accepted, so
right,
I might have to adjust that a little bit. But there's,
if
I drop a minus 140, I should be getting some nibbles.
Yeah, because we said 132 is best in market there. So yeah, I don't hate it at all. I'm not on him this week, and I think there are not as many instances in this game that we're doing, regardless betting or DFS, that you can really take stands and say no. Obviously, you can just punt on high-owned DFS players, but you're not really like drawing a line in the sand saying no specifically. Yeah. So saying no specifically outside of like, occasional miss the cut bet or something like that. But we don't want that here. I can have you make the cut comfortably and finish 30, 40 spots outside the top 20, right? And still sell the weekend. So
at minus 13 for the week, like I just don't see him getting to like minus 18, minus 20.
Yeah, I'm with you. So yeah, I think it's a good bet. And I think taking advantage of Profit X here to do so is a good way to do it.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So
I made the case for one more guy before we depart.
Absolutely, dude. Yes.
I touched on how Poston ranked in that metric that I'm giving the most screens to. Again, like scoring additions, very easy, average. Field strength, very, very weak, average. Course length, very short, average. So I'm taking out all of the difficult stuff. Last 9 months, Michael Kim tops in the field in this metric. Very, very, very bizarre John Deere course history, right? Wins and then has missed the cut in 4 straight starts. I don't know. It's a place that I think has super sticky course history. He's also a significantly different player, right? I think we all agree he's probably one of, if not the most improved player on tour. I think he's here for a reason. The vibes are pretty high, and he's been cut his teeth against better competition. So yeah, I'm pulling Bay Hill out of his, out of his
Yes.
data. We know that was good, but I know that was good, right? I don't need that in Ben Griffin's data set to know that Ben Griffin is playing really good golf. I want to see when the ask is the mid 20s against weaker fields. How do you kind of stack up? And Michael Kim was there. So I grabbed the 50 on Monday to win the golf tournament. I'm playing some really good golf. Kind of since the Truist had withdrew there, wasn't playing really well, but like the number for him in this field, 50 compared to where he's been all season long in great fields. So I like that one. Again, people probably aren't into Michael Kim because they're like, he's missed the cut here 4 straight years. It's just a different dude, right? This is kind of, I think, where we're at.
When did he started playing well, like the beginning of this year, like really well, right? You know, like kind of lost the plot a little bit lately, but we know that the talent obviously has resurfaced. So maybe a happy hunting ground for him again this week. And I was close to putting Mike K versus Mike T, but I went with Mike D instead, or David T, because I think Michael Kim is live around here. This is the first time he's shown up to this venue where he blitzed the field, but actually playing good golf. You know, prior to this, it's been atrocious golf that he's been playing, and I think, you know, not good. But I love that call. I think he's
up like 0.8 strokes over last year, and he's up like I referred to as a mind-numbing 1.7 strokes over his baseline in 2018 when he won this tournament. It's a totally different dude, right? So, I thought the number was in this field pretty bad. I thought 50 was, and I think there's 40, 45s out there still now, but it's a dude that I think he's got all sorts of confidence and moxie, and can play some pretty good golf. So I'm hoping he can get over the finish line.
I hope so too, man. That'll be fun because it'll be a great story. That would be one of the craziest, like, 2-win situations that you could find with so many miscuts in between. Usually there's a couple like mediocre finishes. That would be epic.
Don't play well. Nope. Doesn't even do it.
All right. Wheels up, Asia. We got 1 or 2 questions as we're getting out of here, Noonan, if you have got a couple.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So being an early supporter on a player whose potential is realized, if their new price expectations make them overvalued, alternatively, if the field is weaker, their current cost might be justified. So how do you handle like your Thor situation? That was literally your analogy. So I guess
it's a great question. It's really hard to contextualize outright pricing, knowing that we're getting buried on the hold in terms of like pricing out true win probability, doing it this way. So it's really hard to kind of quantify what that is. I think that's one of the ways when you want to naively go to the well again on the guy that you probably, you can divorce yourself on. He was 100 last week. Why am I betting him at 35 this week? It's crazy, but you kind of have to feel the just, and want to, again, there's a tax on the FOMO, right? Like I used to pay the Aaron Wise tax, and God bless his soul, he's in the field this week. Let's go Aaron Wise. It's like 500 to 1, whatever, and now my tax is a Thor forever. My tax is on, historically, it's played out well for me. My tax, and people in the chat here that are in my Discord will tell you, I would pay the tax on Keegan Bradley forever, and I paid the tax on Russell Henley forever, and the long game won. Okay, like those worked out pretty well for me on going to the well on good spots for those guys and having those guys win golf tournaments. So it's a great question. When it does adjust based off of the potential of the field. I just don't think there's any way. I'm not doing any of the math to quantify that properly. It just is. Can I sit there on Sunday knowing that I didn't bet Thor at 35 because I wanted him to be 50 in a shit field when I'm, absolutely enamored with the style and play of his game? I can't. So I'm going to pay the 35.
Yes.
Right?
There's an emotional tax involved there that if you are in on this dude when he's in the triple digit odds range, there's a reason you're in on him. There's stuff that you see in him that you want to kind of stick through, and him winning when you're not on him it's AIDS, man. That is the worst stuff to happen. And then the reason sometimes their odds are shortening is because they're playing good golf. Your odds don't just shorten for no reason. So you don't need to get freaked out about that, because there's a reason he's lower odds. There's a reason he's the most tipped guy. There's a reason that's happening. And I think you need to almost need to reset and without even having his name, like if you pull up a model that you could filter the column away, maybe on BestBet you can have a take the name away column, and see who pops up and like, ooh, wouldn't expect him to be like this kind of option without his name attached to it, you know? So I think
Right.
kind of looking at it objectively can help you make that decision and be comfortable about how you're going about still playing a guy that's incredibly high price compared to how he used to be. But that's probably a good thing sometimes. In some instances, like Jason Day, Chris Goddard up, you know, like you got to pick your battles, you know, kind of thing. So
you can only have so many guys too, right? So, you know,
yes.
Similar question in the chat about like the amateurs in the field this week. It's like, you know, if you can't bet it until you see it, then you're going to be in a situation where you're not betting Thor. You're betting Thor for the first time this week, right? So like you can't always wait till you see it till it happens. So that's a tricky part.
Yeah, we'll answer that one because and the sad part is I'm doing this too late because I wanted to go to a Case of the Golf One Monday Q qualifier guy on X.
Yeah.
Awesome follow. If you like a golf hardo and wanting to like get behind the scenes in the KFT and the Monday Qs and all of that stuff, like the guy from Estonia today that made it into the Open Championship by holding out from the middle of the fairway. That kind of shit is awesome. I think there's a percentage of like a quarter of the guys at Monday Q make the cut. If you just blindly bet or put them all into your DFS lineups at $6,200, $6,300, no one has spoken about them on any content before Tuesday. So because no one knew they were going to be in the field, and just blindly playing them as they're playing good golf. They just shot 62, most likely to get into the field. So one of them is going to continue that, you know. So I think the same could be said about amateurs, you know, not nearly like the same kind of principle, but these guys are talented and they're in the field for a reason. The sponsors want these dudes because they think the sponsors want a Nick Dunlap who ideally continues to play good golf in the future, but they want a youngster to be part of their brand. Like Jordan Spieth here, he would be playing this week if he wasn't injured. You know, he would be back at the John Deere because this is where he won his first tournament. So, you know, that they're picking guys that they think they're not golf handicappers, but you know, like
it's smart. I mean, why wouldn't you bring Jackson Coyven here and Ben James, and then like all of a sudden if they evolve, they start coming here when they maybe shouldn't come here later in their career. It's a great point.
Yeah.
So, can they win the golf tournament this week? I don't know. It is one of the, like, if they're going to win a golf tournament, it's maybe this one, right? Like, Jackson Coyven, what he's doing as a freshman in like the SEC, it does it again as a sophomore. There's something there, right? Like you can't tell me that he can't go out and beat Jason Day, Ben Griffin for 4 days. He 1,000% can. Can he, you know, beat the rest of the guys? Maybe. You know, it's what, 250 to 1 to find out. Like, I can only fall in love with so many of the guys. All of a sudden, you know, the card gets long and expensive by falling in love with all the up and comers. But they're exciting to watch. That's for sure. Like, if I was going to the event this week, we touched on it on our show today. Like, I'm following Coyven and James. Like, they're not going to have anyone around. People aren't going to have any idea who those kids are. And you just never know what you're going to get. Like, can you get 5 minutes, especially with you know, being, you know, having a badge and having credentials? I'm going to try to steal 5 minutes from Jackson Coyven on the range, or walking off of, you know, passing off his playing partner on the Pro-Am and just kind of picking his brain. Like, you know, that's great access because no one's going to be around that kid. No one knows who he is. So it'd be, you know, that's how I would spend my time this week if I were there. Amen,
baby. And to tie a bow on that, I think DFS is probably the best place to play them because that random 7th place finish can like take real advantage of, you know, whereas like trying to bet them to win, chances are like, maybe top 40s if you're in the mood for that, whatever. Final question, Noonan. One and done picks this week. I'm going with Tristan. I'm all in. I bet him to win triple the amount that I did for everyone else. So 30 units on Tristan, 10 units on everyone else, I bet. I just have a feeling. And back-to-back South Africaners, that would get me, you know, I'm kind of chasing a mini narrative, but there's validation behind it all.
No, I think you did a great job presenting his case. And definitely want to find a way to get some access to him this week. It's a great question. It's a very random question. The way my brain works is I just can't answer it without context, because context in one and done in July is paramount. Where are you in it? Right. I think it's okay to you know, take some chalk if you feel good about a guy. Like if you know, have Ben Griffin live and you know, expect him to make a good showing, be okay to chase that. I think if you're chasing, you only have a handful of full field events left, and you really need to go with someone like Tristan Lawrence.
No one else is going to
off the board, sub 1%, that you're going to make massive gains and hope that some of these other guys kind of fall back, right? And kind of finish in the middle of the pack. So depends on kind of where you are in your standings, Thomas. I mean, I'm not copying out, not giving you a name, but like, again, I would give you the names that I bet. Like I like Denny. I would not do Thor this week necessarily because I would expect him to be very, very popular. It's really hard to gain any leverage there. But a Michael Kim, who's probably not going to be on a ton of radars this week. Echeverria, if he's in the mix. I think some of the guys at Byron did a great job making cases for guys like, Tristan Lawrence, or I think Poston's probably gets a little bit of attention this week because he's
course history.
People know him. He's won. Course history is good. So yeah, I think it really is it makes a ton of difference of where you are in the standings. How big's your pool? All those different things.
Cool. Yeah. So whichever guys we've mentioned that have the higher odds, if you weigh the fuck down, play those dudes. If you want, play Thor, play Ben Griffin, whatever, if you're in the mix, like Noonan mentioned. Ryan, thank you so much, my friend. Great having you on the show. Disappointed you're not going to be at the John Deere, but we'll find ourselves at a Midwest venue. Maybe we're going to find ourselves on a golf course together playing this year. Maybe it's the John Deere a little later this year. Maybe it's somewhere else, but we're going to have a good time doing that. I've seen your swing. It's not the worst I've ever seen on Twitter before. And it's a sneaky power little, it's like a John Rahmy type swing, but with a draw, right? Do you hit a draw?
A little draw.
Yeah.
Yeah. I played in the scramble a couple weeks ago. The scramble team was not good. We used a lot of my shots, which is not always going to be great for us as a scramble. Did win longest drive though, Byron.
Ooh, what was the number?
I poked it out there. It was probably a little shy of 3, but we just had the play cards, so I didn't even measure it out. But it's a little shorty-ish par 4. Left myself with a little chippy, but I can get it out there. People always want to tell me that my backswing's so short. My backswing is short, but guess what? John Rahm's going to short swing backswing too.
Yeah, it's very John Rahm.
The goal is to hit the ball square, and find myself squaring the club face at impact, and I think that's the goal. So. Plus, I'm old. This body doesn't get all the way back anymore. We just gotta stop here. This is good. I feel good here. This is good. Things get long and nothing good happens from here to here, right? So, like, why do I want to go back here? Just get it here, and we just kind of get it down. Get that weight shift. So,
spoken like a true wily vet that you're gonna hate getting beaten by. Like you're the guy that you like in another foursome or a game or whatever, and you just show up and you're like the worst people to lose to, because you should never be beating us. But just because you're disciplined and well-versed in how to play golf and scoring golf, you kick our ass.
Matters.
Speaking about kicking ass, talk to the people where they can find you, what all your jazz is, all that stuff.
BetSports Golf, at BetSports Golf on Twitter. Summertime, get you 50% off of a month if you want to come and check us out a little bit, kick around in the rabbit hole. You've probably seen or heard about. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend checking it out. I think it could help and support, the stuff that you're doing. Get a subscription to Byron. His stuff is awesome. You kind of back it up.
Great.
More data is good, right? They complement each other. So yeah, if you haven't checking it out, betsportsgolf.com. And yeah, on Twitter at BetSportsGolf is the best place to follow. I do a bunch of videos for us, kind of showing off the rabbit hole, different little things I find by kicking around in there. I'm like, oh, this would be fun. Turn the camera on for a couple minutes and try to share some stuff that's interesting. We did a video earlier today because we actually have temperature in the rabbit hole, so we can get a sense of actually who is strokes gained swamp
bass. Factors.
So I'm going to have that tomorrow on coming out for you. So who's the best strokes gained hot over
swamp
the last 18 months.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. So cool. Ron, is fantastic at doing all of that stuff. You know how the rabbit hole came about? I was drinking some rabbit hole whiskey and me and Ron were chatting in the DMs. So I've got a small DNA imprint on there.
The name of the rabbit hole?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's a great name.
Yeah, it's a great name.
So I was watching
Oppenheimer at the time.
Okay. So yeah, you get a little credit. You were an OG on the team. We originally, it was part of. We just had golf at 4 for 4. So 4for4.com football site. You like to bet football? Come bet football. DM me at Ryan Noonan. I'll get you a discount code for 4 for 4.
Yeah, and tackle props. Go tackles. If you're in the mood to be a NFL hardo, Noonan's the tackle prop god. Yeah.
Tackles. So it's so much fun. You want to get the offense off the field and start betting when get your defenders back out there to make some tackles. It's great. Originally we were 4 for 4 and I hired Ron and brought him on to do golf for us. And we were doing, I thought, which is a fantastic name for. We decided we're going to do a golf site and branch off. 4 for 4, FORE, FORE. That's what we were calling it at 4 for 4. The bosses didn't go with it. We just went with BetSports Golf, which is our parent company. I think we missed the mark there, though. Rabbit Hole is fantastic, but if it was the Rabbit Hole at 4 for 4, I mean, t-shirts, mug. I mean, drinking, 4 for 4 mug. It would be fantastic branding, but no, instead we just are BetSports Golf.
Also, typing 4 for 4 into a browser is a nightmare for your fingers. If
Probably true.
So the bosses probably had it, but who gives a shit? That was a great name. I'll give you credit to that as well. Awesome stuff. As always, grab all my stuff. John50 gets you 50% off the Model Maniac Patreon link in the description below. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Pat would appreciate if we could get this to 100K. We had 50 now. Let's go all the way to 100K subscribers here on Mayo Media
Support
Network.
Pat. Pat's the man. He's done so much for the industry, picks people up, and anything we do to support Mayo Media Network is something that I'm down for. So
yeah,
hit the like, subscribe.
Doesn't need the support, but we want the support. Okay, that's what we're trying to tell you guys. We do awesome stuff. Also, the show you did with Emerson was it's like,
I love Emerson. I used to do a ton of DKTV and whatever else stuff they used to have back in the day. So I love Emerson. So I haven't got to listen to all of it yet, but I'm a huge fan of. Yeah, he's fantastic. He's just a good dude.
He pulls it back a little bit when the wife walks in. So there's a lot of good stuff before the missus arrives. But I'll try and have him on for a maybe the Players next year, because I want to have him on for Florida Swing for sure. I think that would be the perfect time to have him, just like I had you for the Midwest. So awesome stuff, people. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you all. I'll be back on Fantasy Golf Degenerates on Monday, and then this for the Genesis Scottish Open next week, Tuesday, 7 Eastern, here on Mayo Media Network. We'll catch you guys soon. Peace.